the mystery of Baalbek. Imagine standing in front of a stone, so enormous that it weighs more than 800 tons. Now imagine that stone was quarried, transported, and precisely placed into a monumental structure more than 1,000 years before modern construction equipment existed. And here's the strange part. This is not a legend. The stones are still there. They are in Baalbek, in modern-day Lebanon, and some of the largest stones ever quarried in antiquity were found here. So who built this enormous structure? How did they move stones weighing hundreds of tons? And perhaps the most disturbing question, why did they build something this massive in the first place? Because the deeper we look into Baalbek, the stranger the story becomes. The giants of stone. At the heart of Baalbek stands the remains of the Temple of Jupiter, but beneath the ruins, something extraordinary survives. A massive stone platform, and inside its western wall are 3 enormous limestone blocks. Together, they are known as the trilithon. Each block is estimated to weigh roughly 800 tons or more. To understand how enormous that is, imagine hundreds of cars compressed into a single piece of stone, except these were not manufactured in a modern factory. They were cut from the earth, shaped, transported, and placed into the structure. The blocks are also enormous in length, reaching around 19 meters. That's roughly the length of several buses placed end to end. And somehow, ancient builders managed to make these enormous stones part of a precisely constructed monument. But the temple isn't the oldest part. Here's where the story becomes even more interesting. Baalbek is not simply a Roman temple sitting on empty ground. The site contains evidence of earlier occupation and religious traditions. The Romans dramatically expanded the sanctuary, but they built within a landscape that already had a much older history. The site was known as Heliopolis during the Roman period, and the monumental complex grew over centuries. Temples dedicated to Jupiter, Bacchus, Venus, and Mercury transformed Baalbek into one of the most impressive sanctuaries of the Roman world. But beneath this Roman monument are enormous foundations. Foundations that raise a question. Why did the builders choose stones of such extraordinary size? Was it simply an extreme example of Roman engineering? Or was there something else about the location that made such monumental construction necessary? The stone that was too big. And then there's the quarry, just south of the monumental complex. Archaeologists discovered something extraordinary, a gigantic limestone block, still connected to the quarry. It became known as the Stone of the South. Its estimated weight is more than 1,000 tons. But even that was not the end of the story. Further research in the quarry revealed an even larger ancient stone, one estimated at around 1,600 tons, more than 1,000 tons of limestone, cut from the bedrock by ancient workers. And yet, that enormous block was never incorporated into the temple. It remained in the quarry. Perhaps it was abandoned. Perhaps the builders changed their plans. Or perhaps moving it proved impractical. Whatever happened, the stone gives us something remarkable, evidence that ancient builders were willing to work with stone on a scale that is difficult to comprehend. How did they move it? Now we reach the question everyone asks. How? How do you move an 800-ton stone without a modern crane? The answer may be less mysterious and more ingenious than we imagine. Ancient builders had several technologies available to them: levers, sledges, ropes, wood, earthen ramps, and enormous amounts of organized human labor. The key may not have been one incredible machine. It may have been a combination of simple machines used on a gigantic scale. The quarry was also positioned at a favorable elevation relative to the monumental platform. That means the problem may not have been lifting the stones vertically, but transporting them gradually across the landscape, and with enough workers, enough time, and careful engineering. Even an enormous weight can be moved, but there is still a problem. Getting a massive stone to the right location is one thing. Placing it precisely is another. The precision. Look closely at the stones. These are not random rocks piled on top of each other. The blocks were shaped, fitted, and incorporated into a monumental structure. The truth then forms part of the massive podium beneath the Temple of Jupiter, and the scale is almost difficult to understand. Imagine trying to position a stone hundreds of tons in weight, and then making sure it fits with the rest of the structure. There is no room for a simple mistake. A small error at ground level becomes a massive problem when you're working with a block nearly 20 meters long. So whatever techniques the builders used, they required planning, geometry, coordination, and an extraordinary understanding of weight and balance, the dark theory. But whenever people see something this extraordinary, another possibility appears. What if the Romans didn't build the foundations? What if they inherited them? For decades, alternative historians and ancient astronaut theorists have suggested that Baalbek may preserve evidence of a civilization far older than the Roman Empire. Some theories go even further. They claim that the builders may have possessed technology that has been lost, or even received assistance from an advanced civilization from somewhere beyond Earth. And this is where Baalbek enters the world of ancient alien theories. Because if humans built these structures, how did they do it? And if they didn't, who did? It sounds like an incredible possibility. But now, we need to step away from the mystery and look at the evidence. What does the evidence actually say? The archaeological evidence tells us something important. Baalbek was a major Roman sanctuary. UNESCO describes the monumental complex as one of the most impressive examples of Roman imperial architecture, and enormous stones are part of that monumental construction. Archaeological research has also found traces of Roman quarrying techniques in the surrounding area. So, we do not need aliens to explain the existence of Baalbek, but that doesn't make the achievement any less impressive, because the real mystery is not necessarily who built it. The evidence strongly connects the monumental construction to Roman period engineering. The more interesting question is, how exactly did they accomplish it? And that question is still fascinating. Ancient engineers did not have modern cranes. They did not have diesel engines. They did not have hydraulic machinery. They did not have modern steel lifting equipment. Yet they created one of the largest monumental stone complexes of the ancient world. This doesn't prove lost technology, and it doesn't prove extraterrestrial intervention, but it does prove something else. Our ancestors were capable of extraordinary engineering, and sometimes we underestimate what organized human labor, simple machines, mathematics, and generations of accumulated knowledge can accomplish. Baalbek may not be evidence of aliens, but it is evidence that ancient engineering was far more sophisticated than many people realize. And perhaps that is the real mystery. There is still something deeply fascinating about Baalbek. We can explain many parts of the story. We know the site. We know the Roman period. We know the quarry. We know the stones. We can propose engineering methods. But standing beneath those enormous blocks, one question remains almost impossible to ignore. Why? Why did ancient builders choose to work on such an enormous scale? Was it simply power? Religion? Political ambition? A desire to create something that would survive for thousands of years? Perhaps the answer is all of these. Because ancient monuments were never just buildings. They were statements. Statements about power, faith, knowledge, and the ability of human beings to reshape the world around them. So, did aliens build Baalbek? There is no scientific evidence that they did. Was Baalbek created by a mysterious lost civilization thousands of years before the Romans? The archaeological evidence does not currently support that claim. But does Baalbek represent an extraordinary achievement of ancient engineering? Absolutely. And perhaps that is a much more interesting conclusion, because sometimes the truth does not make the mystery disappear. It makes the mystery bigger. Ancient humans didn't need futuristic machines to build something extraordinary. They needed knowledge, organization, time, and an ambition large enough to move mountains. Baalbek is still standing, thousands of years later, and perhaps its greatest message is not that someone from another world came here, but that the people who lived here. But Baalbek is only one of the ancient megastructures that continue to raise questions across the planet. There are enormous stone monuments, ancient cities, massive underground structures, and mysterious constructions built by people who lived thousands of years ago. Some have reasonable explanations, others remain debated, and some are still waiting for us to understand them. The next time you see an ancient structure, don't just ask, who built it? Ask something more interesting. What did they know that we may have forgotten? This is only the beginning. The universe is full of questions. We are here to find the answers.